Hi, I'm Chuck Samikian.
And I'm John Tallheimer. Welcome to the HR Stories Podcast,
where there's a lesson in every story. Plenty of sunshine headed my way.
Button?
Right here. Where's the record button?
Where's the record button? Hi, everyone. How are you? This is John.
And it's Chuck. And together we are Wild Stallions. Oh, wait, that's an old reference. Most people may not get it.
Yeah, I think you better be careful with your references. You're dating yourself.
Yeah.
So, Chuck, I'm excited for this.
My dad told me all about that movie.
Oh, yeah. My grandfather told me all about that. So I'm excited for this podcast episode because I'm going to kind of do some interviewing here because you had the opportunity, and I'm going to say privilege, to go to SHRM Annual Conference.
Yep, the National Conference in San Diego this past July 2025, and it was big, John. I've never been to a big national conference, and it was really impressive the way that it was done. And folks, if you are in HR, and I'll just say this, if you've never been to an HR conference, you got to at least get to your state conference. And if you can, it's not that much more except for maybe travel, go to a national conference. It's really quite the event.
Yeah, and I would say I've been to numerous state conferences. I have not been to the annual one. The state ones, depending on the state, right, can be run really well, have great speakers, great keynotes, great all those kind of things. So I do think it's an opportunity to do it. And you get to meet cool HR people. If Chuck and I ever get our act together, we're going to go on the road and we'll go to every one of those SHRM conferences and do a little podcast from each one of them if we ever get our act together. Right, Chuck?
We're getting our act together, John. We're just having too much fun doing podcasts and writing books. And actually, you know what? I got to tell you, that's probably one of the most exciting things about this conference is our book, The Ultimate Guide to HR, Checklist Edition, was for sale at the SHRM conference. And they were selling it. I went to look for it on the first day, and I couldn't find it. And I looked around. Finally, I asked someone, Montrese, who we worked with the SHRM bookstore, and she said, "Oh, you can't find it because it's probably sold out." It's like, what? It's not even the end of the first day. And I went, and there were 2 copies left. And as I was there, one guy was there leafing through it. He picked it up, and he bought it. And then the next morning, I went, and they were all gone. All of our copies that, by the way, are approved by SHRM. I can't say they're endorsed by SHRM because they don't really endorse stuff, but they are approved for SHRM recertification credits. The SHRM logo is on the cover, and you can get. They loved it so much, John. They're going to sell it at the HR Florida conference now too. Yeah. So that was pretty exciting.
That was exciting, and I loved watching the videos you were sending me. Like, look, there's no books. Wait, where's the book? I gotta find the book. There's no books here. And I don't know if I told you this, but the books. So they ordered 150% more than the annual conference for the Florida conference. So hopefully, if you're going to Florida, get the book. You can get it there. And they just arrived in the warehouse, so they are there, so you don't have to worry about that. I know you were probably sweating behind the scenes going, I gotta get that. Did you do that? So,
but if you're not going to HR Florida, you can still go to Amazon.com, search The Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition, pick up your copy, and go from there. We have had so much positive feedback. It's 5-star reviews. It is a great book, and so that was the first exciting thing for me. Yeah. But, the whole SHRM conference, I mean, it's big. It's big in the conference and the 2 hotels next to it. But there were the common general classes. Hey, what's happening in HR? Let's talk about the laws and the this and that. But I did see 2 themes. Two themes in a lot of the sessions that were being presented. The first one was a lot of mental health and leave and benefits themes. So that's a real serious thing. And, don't overlook mental health. Don't overlook, things that, and it was not only even just overlooking mental health, but things we shouldn't be saying in the workplace anymore. And geez, I can't. There were a couple of things that. Oh, I'm having my. Sometimes we joke around. We say, "Oh, that's a PTSD moment I just
Oh,
had."
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's real serious now. It's a real deal, and
Yeah.
there are people out there. So I found that to be really interesting, and not to ignore the calls for help. Make sure you have an EAP. Make sure you have some outlet for folks to use. The other big theme
Wait. Before you
was,
go on to your next
yeah,
theme, just a couple of things. Number one, EAP, for those people that don't know, are employee
yes,
assistance programs, right? And so typically you can get those through your broker, your health insurance, and they're not that expensive to get. And they're a valuable tool. I've used them in my life to do that. The other thing that I want to mention is that I know we're talking about wellness as in terms of employees and mental health and all that kind of stuff. HR are employees. HR are employees. So we are employees. So make sure that you're taking, you need your mental health too. You need to be strong. And it's very easy as an HR, especially an HR department at one, Chuck. It's very easy to feel alone, feel isolated. So one of the things I recommend is joining us on our Facebook group, HR Community of One. And that way you have other HR departments of one there, and they're chatting and talking, and we're in there jumping in, giving them information. So I would recommend that, but also just remember that you're not alone, right? We're all
right.
in this together, and I think it's important. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you because I know you want to talk about the second topic.
Yeah, the second topic, no surprise, is AI. I mean,
Yeah.
AI everywhere. How to use AI, how not to use AI, where there are ways to use AI to make your life easier and better as an HR person. I know that AI has saved me tons and tons and tons of time. And I'm not saying, hey, AI, do this for me. I'm talking about I'm putting in my own content and helping me sort through, helping me find common themes, investigations, and things like that. So a lot of people are using it in a similar fashion. There are now HR AI type programs. A lot of people were selling their, like, it wasn't so much ADP, but maybe Paylocity or Paycor. Their HR
Right.
systems have AI in them, and so it was absolutely fascinating to see how things were just exploding
Yeah.
on the AI front.
Yeah, and again, still concerns about bias. There was a thread on one of the Facebook groups I'm in HR, and they were like, there's still a bias in the recruiting part, and you have to be careful, and you have to double check and triple check and do all those kind of things. So again, I think I was using it today, right? I had a coaching client that I'm working with, and I'd gotten some assessments back for this individual, and I just literally put them into AI and like, give me the highlights. What do I need to know? And that kind of stuff. Now, I also did my own work, right? I also went through the assessments myself, and I'm like, oh, what about this? And then what I did, which I found very helpful today, I would like, oh, I noticed this. How do you think that plays out in the workplace for this
Right.
individual, right? And so, again, not 100% accurate. I'm not going to be like, oh, it's great. But it can be useful, and I know you use it, and I know other people use it for rewriting emails, rewriting job descriptions, and just kind of making sure that you have it, and just having someone to kind of bounce ideas off. Oh,
Yeah.
that just reminds me. I read this article about a teacher who decided that for his freshman writing classes in college, he was going to have the students incorporate AI. And he wanted to see, basically his question was, do you still need an English professor to teach these courses, right? To teach freshman writing in there. And he did all these different things. Like sometimes he would have them write without AI. And then they're like, now put it in AI and see what it does. And then have AI write it for you. And then you rewrite it, and did all these different exercises. And when he came to the conclusion, so he asked the students, I think it was 72 different students. He asked them, like, do you think you still need an English professor? And they're like, yes. Like 65 out of 72 said yes.
Okay.
Which was just pretty impressive, right? But what he said is that having two people, the professor and then not the person, but AI, also look at the work and give feedback to that student was much better than just having one or the other do it.
Okay.
And I think that's true, right? And I think that can how we can think of it in HR and kind of pull some of that stuff together. So I'm glad you went to that, and I mean, you and I have been talking about this for a couple weeks now, but I love that you went there and had that experience. Any other highlights?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I
Okay.
mean, I don't, our listeners are probably wondering what else happened.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
big keynote speakers. Jason Sudeikis was there,
Oh, cool.
gave a speech about, it was like Ted Lasso talking to HR people. So that
Right.
was kind of fun. You had the lady that played Angela and Pam, the receptionist from The Office. They were there. They have a podcast, the Office
Oh, yeah,
Ladies
yeah, 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 yeah.
podcast. So
Yeah.
they talked a little bit about stuff. I don't know. I can't remember exactly where they were going with this stuff. Joe Biden was there, the former president,
Yeah.
and politically, whether you like him or don't like him or think he did a good job, whatever, he actually did a really good job at the podium, talking about the importance of family and the importance of keep taking care of people and keeping an eye, doing your best to support people and family. And if people need off for family, do what you can. And so I thought that was it. There was a good message there. He did a
Yeah.
great job, delivered flawlessly. I was a little I was kind of curious how that would go. More interesting to me actually was and we were at the front row. We scored some vendor tickets. So we were
Nice.
really up close, which allowed me to watch all the Secret Service people standing in the shadows. And,
Right.
they say they have these fake hands, the Secret
Oh.
Service. I don't know if you've seen that out there, where it looks like it looks like a real hand, but it's really their arm, and their hand is actually under their jacket. But the hand is like this, and it's
Oh.
hanging there, and they move it around and stuff like that. It was crazy. But they had the one thing I want to share with our listeners is Johnny Taylor, who
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the
yeah.
president of SHRM, president, CEO, whatever, gave a great keynote speech. And the fun thing is, after the conference over, I was on the plane. I sat next to a guy. I'm going to do a shout out to Larry Burke. Larry is his content strategy guy for SHRM. He helped Johnny with this speech, and he put a lot of the content together that was in these big presentations. So I got a chance to talk to him, and we just kind of chatted about. Johnny Taylor had three key points for HR folks, and I made some notes, and I just wanted to share those with the team. The three key things coming into 2025 and 2026 HR. Here's the deal. Number one, championing equal opportunity in a shifting DEI workplace. That was concept one. Concept two was talking about tackling human displacement. I've never heard of that before. I'm going to go back to these in a minute, but I just want to
Okay.
share human displacement is where AI is displacing humans.
Oh.
Yes, it's a really interesting
Automation.
concept. And the third point was restoring civility and trust in the workplace. And civility is such a big thing. I see it every day on my job. I've seen it a lot of places I work, that civility. So, going back to the first point from Johnny Taylor's, the CEO, president of SHRM, he's talking about the core message with equal opportunity and the shifting landscape is that DEI is under attack. HR professionals, he's saying, need to adapt without abandoning the mission. So he's saying you can adapt, and it's not about ideology. He himself stated, I think we've gone a little too far. And you're thinking, SHRM, they're all going to be like, oh, yeah, we got to do all that. No, he's like, we went a little too far, because we really need to focus on impact, not about politics. We need to focus on people and performance, he said. And he says what HR needs to do is build these strategies on legally compliant, and it's what you have talked about for weeks and weeks and weeks, John. Build your DEI strategies on legally compliant, inclusive, and future ready foundations. In other words, not just old equity-based language. And I could hear some gasp in the crowd, like, that sort of thing. Like, oh my gosh, you're giving up. He's like, no, no, no. We're reframing this whole thing. And so they're going to actually launch this thing called CEO Action, which is going to focus on legal, unifying, and business positive DE&I efforts. So I thought that was good. It's like practicality, John, and I thought it met a good common ground for people that are for and against this. And he said, look, SHRM has a position in this, but it may not be what you think it is. And I thought that was great.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And again, I didn't hear all the details and stuff, but again, going back, right, the laws are still there, right? And so again, we have to do the laws, we have to do it. And there's some betterment. We know diversity is important for business, the bottom line. We know inclusion is important for engagement, employee engagement. When we have employees that are engaged, they do better, the performance is better. And equity is just, we should be treating everyone fair and giving everyone the opportunities they deserve. And that means additional handout or a help to somebody, a help up to somebody, then yeah, I think we should do that. And so doing it in a way, though, that's not going to get the ire of other people, and making sure that we're doing it fair across the spectrum, I think is really important.
Yeah. And so the second point Johnny Taylor, president of SHRM, had was during the conference was tackling human displacement. Now, I just had never really thought of this as an issue or even framing this up, but his core message was AI is not disrupting people's work, It's not disrupting work as much as it's displacing humans. And he's saying HR needs to lead the way in preparing people for what's next. He says we're staring down this paradox. He says people without jobs and jobs without people.
Oh, interesting.
And he was saying his actionable advice on this was interesting, and it might be a bigger piece to chew for just general HR people trying to figure out every day how to handle their HR-ness stuff.
Right.
But he's saying reskilling isn't enough. He says HR must strategically align training opportunities, supporting both young and aging workers, basically lead with empathy as AI accelerates. He's worried that companies are just going to be cutting people, no empathy there. What can we do to try and maybe repackage or reskill our workplace? And there is this coalition to save the next generation. Think about what it means to help people find purpose at work if AI is displacing their jobs. But that human displacement was a pretty interesting concept.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And I definitely think, again, it's automation as well. And automation is replacing workers. It has since the Industrial Revolution, right? It kind of replaces those individuals. And then how do you as an organization go, look, and again, I think there are times that the bigger organizations were like, we're going to get rid of this whole department because we don't need them anymore. But a lot of times it's the ones or the twos or the threes where we're like, well, you know what? We don't need 5 people to do this anymore. We only need 3. And so then what do we do with those other 2? And every time I look at an organization, they're always in need of additional help, right? Mm-hmm. And so can we move them to another place and reskill them and give them the knowledge and give them a sense of purpose in that organization? Just seems like a great way to think about that. And I'm glad he brought that up during the SHRM conference. And I do think you're right? In the day-to-day work, this may not be something that you can focus on, but it is something to think about. And I think it goes to our concept of the holistic employment. How do we do that? How do we build on that? So we're helping them have a long tenure career with us. When we're loyal to our employees, we will find loyalty back. When we're not loyal, then they're like, yeah, I'm gone. So
yeah. And so really with the AI thing is that we're, gosh darn, I forgot what I was going to say.
Wait, let me ask AI.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the third point, Johnny.
Yeah.
Taylor, yeah, maybe it'll come back to me. We maybe Pam, Sam, our editor can edit it back in, but I don't think
Oh,
so. Now that I
that's
just
good. I
thought
like
of
it.
Pam, not Sam. Anyways, hey, it makes it real here on the HR Stories podcast. So Johnny Taylor, the president of SHRM, had a third point, and we see this every day in politics. But he says it's very important to restore civility and trust in the workplace. Workplace incivility, he says, is really the biggest threat to the future of work, and HR needs to be the solution. Whether whenever you divide, you diminish, he said.
Oh, I like
And the goodness, yeah, I mean, he's got some great sayings here. And he came up, Larry Burke, shout out to Larry again.
that. Yeah.
I don't, he kind of helped write a lot of this stuff, but it's amazing. And so model respect, empathy, and truth. And he said SHRM commits to being a trusted source, cutting through the misinformation, cutting through the politics, research, data, and facts. So it was good to see him kind of throw out something that just a position saying, hey, this is where SHRM is going and to support the HR community.
You know what else? I was out walking my dogs today, and this thought came in my head is we think, right, social media is sort of the buzz, right? And so news stations and reporters and other social media outlets will be like, well, the social media sphere is da 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 da. And then I start thinking about, one, how many people are actually on social media, right? And it's not 100%, it's probably more like 50%. And two, how much time are people spending on social media, right? And so there are players out there that are on it 24/7, and they're like, man, this person's terrible and this person's terrible, and we got to get into it. But if I think when we step back and we think about what is the goal of our business, how does everyone work towards that goal? Mm-hmm. What are the skill sets? And that connection through civility can be the secret sauce that's going to make an organization succeed or not.
Yeah, and he said along those lines is HR needs to rise up. You need to speak up, and if you see it, you've got to address it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
So he kind of ended the speech, and I love this. During the 2023 conference a couple years earlier, he had urged HR pros to run into the storm, not away from it. Talked about the buffalo, be the buffalo. Have you ever heard this before? Buffalo, when a storm is coming, buffalo run into the storm. They run towards the storm. They weather the storm by running towards the storm, running into it and through it. He says, and I want HR going forward to fly. And he used this eagle metaphor that talked about, what an eagle does is basically it soars above the storm. It uses the wind from the storm to soar higher. And he says, I want you to fly. Don't try to escape the storm, but use the storm to lift yourself higher. It was like great inspirational stuff, but drop the mic on that. Anyways, if you're not a member of SHRM, you need to join. They've got some great, and we're not endorsing, we're not getting anything for this, but there's some great tools, and you want to try and make it to a SHRM conference. But it was neat seeing this Johnny Taylor speak in person. Really a big fan now. Big fan.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I would say that the other thing that SHRM is good for is connecting you to other HR people. And so there's always, I know when I was in Tennessee, there was always like 4 times a month, there was networking events, conferences, that kind of stuff. And so there's always a great way to do that. A lot of SHRM state memberships or local memberships are doing virtual stuff, which isn't as powerful, I think, because you don't have those little kind of conversations around the coffee and that kind of stuff, but still important, right? And so kind of having that opportunity. So,
yeah. Well, folks, thanks for listening to the HR Stories podcast. And, real stories, real lessons the heart of HR. That's what we're all about. And until then, until the next episode, keep rising.